Hello, sister. Welcome to the Hood. Sisterhood in 60. My name is Christy Little Jones, and this is my co host, Nicole Clough, and we are so excited that you are here. We are really excited about what we are going to talk about today: motherhood, a calling, a purpose, and a privilege. But before we get started, we want to tell you a little bit about ourselves. So, my name is Christy Little Jones. I am a relationship coach, a marriage and family champion, and the chief cheerleader for women all over the world. I am celebrating 20 years of marriage this year. Whoop, whoop. And I have three amazing teenagers, 16, 17, and 18 years old. And so I want to turn it over to you, sis, so you can tell our viewers a little bit about you.
Hello, sister. As she said, my name is Nicole Clough. I am a creative, I'm a minister, I'm an encourager, and the mom of three amazing girls. I have a 15-year-old, soon to be sweet 16, and I have twins that are 14. And they are just awesome young ladies. I'm so excited to be their mom and blessed to be their mom. And I'm excited to dive into this topic because, yeah, it's a lot, ladies. It's amazing to be a mom. Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is amazing. So I want to just start, sis, by talking a little bit about motherhood and, how it kind of entered my life. So growing up, like I had a mom who was amazing. And let me just tell you, I loved the fact that she was home. She was an actress. And so she was able to kind of, if I was sick at school or if I forgot my lunchbox, she was one of those moms that was able to come bring it to school because she kind of worked from home. She had a really kind of flexible schedule, right? And I will never forget when I was in probably fifth or sixth grade, we had a presidential fitness test. Do you remember that? They had
Oh, yeah.
president's physical fitness test thing like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I hated it. And so I remember one day in particular at my school in Santa Barbara, and it was actually in Montecito at Crane School. I remember having this president's physical fitness test thing where you had to run, and I was not feeling well that day. I was sick. And so I was like, oh, I don't feel well. They thought I was trying to get out of it. But I literally had to race and run on the field, and it was not good, sis. I literally ran off the field in the middle of the race or whatever we're supposed to be doing. I went to the nurse's office and called my mom because I had had an accident. Yes. I remember my mom coming to pick me up, and I literally had to ride home facing backwards on my knees. Yes, it was that moment that I said, I want to be a stay-at-home mom for my children
Oh,
because my mom was able to rescue me in a very embarrassing situation, a very difficult situation when I was young. I will never forget it. And that was the moment where I was like, I want to be a stay-at-home mom. And so I don't know, how old are you at sixth grade? 12,
something
maybe?
like that. Yeah.
Like that. Yep.
Yeah.
So 12, since I
11.
was
Yeah.
12 years old, I have wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. And I mean, a wife, stay-at-home mom. And literally, I started on that day, I started writing down the names of my kids, my future children, and what I wanted them to be called. So any fire name, right? Any fly name that I saw, that I heard, that I read, I would put it on this list on the back of my agenda book at school, and I would transfer it every single year. And I did that for 20 years before I had my first child.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Motherhood was something that was ingrained very early on in my life. And I just knew I always wanted to be a wife and mom since I was a very little girl. And so as we get started, I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about a calling, motherhood
Mm.
being a calling, and what that means. We always talk a little bit about the purpose and understanding the purpose of things, right? Because when you
Mhm.
understand the purpose of something, then abuse is when you don't understand the purpose of something,
Right.
abuse is
Right.
inevitable, right? So
Right.
just understanding the purpose of motherhood the reason why God created mothers. I think it's really important in recognizing our calling. So, can you talk a little bit about the calling of motherhood?
Wow. First of all, let's just say whoop whoop to you thinking about motherhood at that stage of the game in life. I think you should be talking about the calling. That was not my story. Um, I think, the calling to be a mom is like the highest calling that there is, right? So when you really think about it, if we were to just really get down to like the brass facts of it all, just like bare bones, like motherhood is essential to existence, you know? So, when God said he looked around, he saw Adam in the garden with all those animals. He looked around and he is like, listen, first of all, God knew in his mind Jesus had to get here somehow. And Adam and one of them animals was not going to make it. So he said, it is not good that man be all one or be alone, that I'm going to make a helpmate suitable for him. And so I believe the calling for a mom really started in the heart of God, because he needed someone to carry his most precious gift, Jesus.
So good.
And so, in order for him to be carried, he needed to find a wombed man in order for that to happen. And that happened to be a woman. And so, the calling for us, to me, is the heartbeat of God, for us to be able to be a vessel, to be an incubator for the seed of God in our lives, meaning children of God. Don't get it twisted. I ain't talking about we all marry. We birth another Jesus. But what I am saying is that God has placed inside of us the seed of his heart, and that is children. The Bible says that children are an inheritance, of the Lord. Like, us being able to give birth to children is such an amazing gift, and our heart surely goes out to women who desire to be a part of that and have not been able to naturally have their own children. That's where that ache comes from, because we know it's part of the plan of God, and we all want to be able to experience, that gift. And so it's a calling, and it's not just carrying a baby, for 9 months and then boom, you're done. This is a lifelong engagement of taking care of that seed and making sure the harvest on the seed that God has given you is fruitful. And so it goes far beyond just the basic natural things in life. It's so much greater than that. It's so much greater than that.
That is beautiful, sis. I love that. I want to double back a little bit because I want you to talk a little bit about your understanding or maybe your desire for motherhood when you were young.
Mm.
As you were growing up and you knew, as you kind of get older, you think, do I want to have kids? Some people when they're young, they're like, definitely not. Right. If they're having a bad experience, like, I never want kids. Like, some people already know they don't ever want to have kids.
Mhm.
They never want to be a mom. And so can you talk a little bit about your experience with wanting to become a mom or just motherhood in general?
Wow. Okay. So I have to talk to it from both sides. So, I have an amazing mom, amazing grandmother. I was raised by such strong women. And I did not grow up, thinking about becoming a mom and having kids. Like, that just wasn't my mindset. It wasn't until I began to serve the Lord and to really understand in serving him the gift that he's given in being a wife and being a mom. And so my desire for motherhood came much later in life when I began to be serious relationship wise, and just understanding that it's part of the beauty of relationship. It's the union, it's the coming together of two lives to create another life between the two of them. And to me, that is such a beautiful process, to even think that you're a part of that type of a miracle, because it's a miracle, right? Like,
Oh,
when
yeah.
you think about, like, when you just sit and think about it, you're like, I'm actually developing a human being in my body.
Human,
A
yes,
human being. Like,
right.
seriously? You know? And so it's that whole process. It's that from the moment of conception when that baby is being born, it's just one of those things that you just feel, you are in awe of just how amazing that process
Mhm.
is, even though I was sick every single day
With
without
all
fail.
three?
All 3 of them. Well, 2, but yes, all 3. 2
Wow.
pregnancies, yeah. But every day, I never threw up, not one time, but I was nauseous every day for 9 months.
Mm,
And, so many things like, just the smell of anything would just make me super, super, super sick.
I remember.
But you know what? I did it again, even though I had that experience because it's such a gift from God.
Yeah, that's so good. I love that. And I loved what you said about the calling of motherhood really is the heartbeat of God and
Yes.
how much He loves children. And I think that just is a great way, a great segue in leading us to talking about the purpose. Like the
Mm,
purpose of motherhood is it's so powerful and it's so profound. Like, right? So we are, like you said, creating these humans. We are literally they're growing on the inside of us.
mhm.
And the influence that we have on our children starts at conception, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about that. Let's talk a little bit about the purpose of motherhood and the influence that we have as women on who our children become.
Mm. Um, you know, one of my favorite, I'll just say, one of the scriptures that I believe are just, foundational, right?
Mhm.
Is Jeremiah 1:5 when it comes to this. You know, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. And so what really speaks to me about this is that um, God said He knew us before we were formed in the womb. So guess what that means? That means He directs the children to whom He wants the parents to be.
Oh,
Like
yes.
it's like he already understands, he knows where it is that he is sending this seed. And not only did he know us before that time, but he ordained us, he set us apart.
Mhm.
And so I think that the calling for and the purpose behind it, and how we sort of influence our children from the womb is how we walk out that pregnancy, and just how important that is, and
Huge.
from what we listen to what we eat, to how we engage. Some of the happiest babies, around, you see, came from happy pregnancies,
Yeah.
where whether you're reading to your baby, whether you're playing music, whether you're singing to them, whether you're talking. And it's just one of those things where you just begin to connect with this baby on the inside of you, through the entire pregnancy. It's not kind of like, okay, I'm pregnant now, and then in 9 months, we're going to see you then. No, 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 no. You're identifying and connecting with this baby all along the way.
Yeah.
And I think it's just such an amazing
Yeah.
experience,
Mm.
from the first kick to the move to the flutters to all of those things that you feel. You are building a solid connection with your child all along that way.
Yeah. Yes, I
Mhm.
love that. I actually absolutely, I agree. I feel like, like you said, everything from our outside world, our
Mhm.
external world can influence our internal state, right?
Absolutely.
So if we are in a stressful situation or we're dealing with a lot of stress, whether you're pregnant or not, your body internally will
Mhm.
express that in a way, right? Whether it comes out in high blood pressure, whether it comes
Mhm.
out in anxiety.
Yeah.
or fear or depression, or it can be a plethora of things, ulcers, right? But it's
Mhm.
based on the external environment influencing your internal environment. So if
Yeah.
you are the host really developing this child on the inside of you, it's really important for you to be mindful, be intentional, be conscious and aware of how you are allowing your external world to affect your internal world. Because your
Absolutely.
body, yes, right, and your womb is going to absorb all of that.
Mhm.
So whether like if you are in, like you said, reading to your child and you're putting, music, like so they're able to feel the rhythm, and then you are journaling and you are eating healthy and you are exercising and you're stretching and you're doing all of these different things to really care for your body, you care for yourself, your body, your baby is going to absorb that. And if
Mhm.
it's the negative side of life and things that happen and you're not conscious and aware of it, your baby is
Mhm.
going to absorb that. And,
Yeah.
just being even a relationship coach, like I've really talked to numerous women and men who have said that they've had very difficult childhoods. And,
Mm.
even doing studying just from a health educator standpoint about, happiness, a lot of happiness is inherited. Did you know that?
Mm.
Sis, did you know that?
Interesting.
Yes,
I could see that being it. Yes.
really
Yes.
surprised. Yeah. So, but the key is the influence. Now,
Mm.
one of the things that I realized is I wanted to be very intentional with raising my child, similar to many of us, right? Where there's an intention about, okay, who do I want this child to become as an adult? Who do I
Mhm.
want them to be like? How do I want them to act? How do I want them to be and express themselves in the world, right? And
Mhm.
so you have to really kind of reverse engineer it, right? You
Right.
from, okay, I know that like even the little things like manners, that's something that I grew up, you couldn't say, if you didn't say please or thank you, forget it, you didn't get it. Whereas I think a lot of that art is lost where people assume that you're supposed to do something for them. So the please and the thank yous go,
Or go away. Yeah. They're
they're,
so entitled.
yes, they go away. And there's not this, oh, please, thank you. There's this, hey, do you have this? And then they say, sure. And they give it to you, but there's no response of, oh, thank you, or please. And you're just like,
Mhm.
where,
Right. Yeah, I'm like, I don't like, can you say yes, please? Like, what I don't like is sure, sure, sure. Like, what kind of answer is that?
or
Yes,
yeah,
please. No, thank you.
yeah,
Or yeah, yeah, yeah. Like,
yeah.
what?
Wow, right.
Yeah.
And so the influence, I think, as mothers is
Mhm.
huge. So, because
Absolutely.
let me tell you, mothers who don't do their jobs, who are not intentional, mothers who have sons,
Mm,
I'm just going to tell you, it's not fun
mm,
being a wife trying to raise a husband. Listen, there are so many wives that I've talked to who have said that their husbands are like liabilities
mm,
because there were missing intentional um missing intentional action during
mm,
the parenting process. Now,
mm,
what I also have I've been a health educator for over 20 years, by trade and by through education. And one thing that has, kind of become a buzzword is social emotional development, right?
mhm,
So social emotional development is the art of really teaching children how to not only express themselves, but be able to identify their emotions and express them successfully in relationships.
okay.
Now, if you are not reading to your child or if you're not teaching them things before the age of 5 and they do not learn these social cues, they do not learn how, they're not having the opportunity to develop socially and emotionally, then you're dealing with a lot of behavioral issues in children.
Mm.
This all started when I was working with a company, and they were doing a lot of research around this social emotional development and trauma informed care. So they were identifying grade school, like kindergarten through second graders, who were suspended and expelled from school.
Kindergarten, second grade.
Kindergarten through second grade. They are 10 times more likely to be incarcerated. Right? Because of the lack of social emotional development that the parents provide their children. And that is creating a safe place for children to learn how to not only express themselves, but develop social relationships, feel safe in these relationships, and know how to move on from there. And then if that's not happening, if that is missing, then you now have behavior issues in school that lead to expulsion. That
Mm.
can lead to 10 times more likely to end up incarcerated.
Wow.
So where does this all stem from?
Wow.
Motherhood, right? Motherhood and motherhood. Now, 9 times out of 10, the mother is the primary caregiver, right? This is why we're just
Mm-hmm.
talking about motherhood because, motherhood, it's celebrated once a year, like
Right.
on the calendar. It should be
Mm-hmm.
celebrated every day, right?
Yes.
Opinion. But let me just say, there's a purpose and there's an influence that you have there. So what that means, purpose, influence, it means responsibility. That's
Mm-hmm.
what it means, right? There's a responsibility that you have when you birth a child and bring them into this world. Now,
Mm-hmm.
many people forgo their responsibility because there's no intention, right? They may accidentally get pregnant. They don't really want the child. They fight with the father. There's abuse, rape, all of these different things, the different levels, right?
Mm-hmm.
That can, different scenarios. But the idea is that as a mother, it's your responsibility to care for the child, whether
Right.
that is giving the child up for adoption because you can't care for them and
Mm-hmm.
there's another family out there that can, or whatever. So, but the point is that there is a responsibility that comes with motherhood. And
Absolutely.
so I thank you, sis, for just talking about, like even the purpose and the influence of motherhood in just a magnanimous way, because it's huge. And if you don't take the calling and the purpose seriously, then you're going to end up having, I think, a lot of turmoil within the parent or the mother-child relationship.
Absolutely.
Yes, but I wanted to ask you too, why do you think there's so much turmoil between mothers and their children?
Wow. So this is, truly my own opinion because I have no information to really vouch for that, but I can only just speak from um there has to come a place. I heard Joyce Meyer say this today. It's like when you don't love yourself,
Mhm.
it's very difficult not only to love your children, but to be the expression that they need and the guidance. It's
Can you
that
say that again, please?
self-love.
It's so good. We
It's
need
true.
to That is so good, sis. Say that again.
It's true. When you don't love yourself, then it's very difficult for you to be that expression of love that your children need, that guidance and that instruction and that direction. And so when there's an absence of love, there's always going to be a breakdown in relationship.
Mm.
I mean, always,
When there
because love really is the foundation.
Yes, when there's an absence of love, there's always gonna be a breakdown in the relationship. Not only
Always.
mother-child, but husband-wife,
Friends,
friends.
family,
Oh
all the, yeah.
gosh.
When there's an absence of it. Like
Mm,
real love, there's going to be a breakdown in the relationship.
right,
And
but
so
go ahead, go ahead.
And so moms with their kids, you know, when you have that breakdown, it's I think an ability for you to, how do I say it? For you to be the example that they need to see, you know, for you to be that that strength and
Mhm,
that that framework that they need as a child, you
mhm.
know, not trying to be their friend, but being their parent and being that one who goes before them, you know, and prepares a way for them successfully. And that comes through prayer, that comes through relationship with the Lord. And there are women out there who have no that don't know Jesus, who have done this, you know, and who have made great ways for their children, developmentally, educationally, emotionally. So I'm not saying that it can't be done, but let me tell you, honey, when you got the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords on your side to give you some direction, and you listen and you do what he's guiding and teaching you to do, you can't help but to raise kingdom dominators and world changers. It's just the truth. Your relationship will be different.
That is so good. And I think to your point, like the being the expression of love.
Hmm.
One of the things that I always talk about is that God created us out of love,
Yes.
right? And he created us with a heart to love.
Yes.
And that love, the expression of that love was the same.
Mm, that's
Then
good.
we had experience and encounter with the people that we were born to in this
Hmm.
world. And that is when we started to really put our own definition to what
Mm.
love actually was.
Hmm.
And if it didn't align with God's definition, because he created it, so there's only one, right?
Right.
It became corrupted. So our expression of love became corrupted because of the experiences that we had as children.
Yep.
And then now as adults, we have this definition that love is abandonment, love is control, love is manipulation, love is neglect, love is abuse, love is
Mm.
judgmental, love is
Mm.
critical, criticism, all these different, or love is nurturing, love is support, love is security, love is happy, love is joyful. Like depending on our experience,
Yes.
it that is what determines our expression of how we love.
Mm.
And if
That
you
is so
don't
good.
understand that your expression or your definition has been corrupted by your experiences, then you're going to find yourself in relationships where you're like, why am I always being treated like a dog? Like, why am I always attracting dogs? Or why am I always being treated less than? Why am I not valued? Why am I not appreciated? Why am I tossed to the side and
Yep.
not cared for? Like,
Yep.
because that has been your experience. And oftentimes what it does is these experiences put a lens over our eyes, and we're now looking through the lenses of our experience, looking for evidence that what we believe is true,
Come on now. Come on now. It's
but it's not,
true.
right? It's not,
Mm.
because love is patient,
Come on.
love is kind,
Come on.
and love does not keep a record of wrong. So if you are with somebody who is not kind, who is not patient, who is like, oh, well, I loved you. What did you do for me? I did this for you. What did you do for I did these three things for you. Now you got to do three things for me.
That's
Guess
not
what? I
love.
can tell you that right now. That is not love.
That is not love.
And then they're going to tell you, I love you. I love you. No,
No, you don't.
because you don't really
Mm-mm.
know what love is. And so if there's a standard or there's a definition already created for love, and if we don't measure up our own understanding of love or expression of love or experience of love to that standard, then we're not going to know how we need to get better at
Mhm.
loving other people, expressing love, and really receiving love.
Mm.
Right?
That is so good.
So we've got to be aware. There's an awareness that needs to happen about how do you love? How do
Yeah.
you receive love? And how do you see love? Like when you look
Mm,
through the lenses of your perception of your perceived life, what does love look like to you? And if you align it with the true purpose of what love is, how does
mhm.
it line up? And if it's not lining up, what do you need to do to allow it to line up, make it line up, shift things in your life so that they,
Mm,
right? One, you've got to know who God created you to be, right? That's a whole nother,
that's a
a
whole
whole nother
nother.
hood and six, right? There's a whole nother one about identity, right? But you've got to know that, you know what? I deserve love. God created me because he loved me. He created me out of love. So why am I in this relationship where I don't feel loved, where I don't feel like this person is
Mhm.
loving me? Right. So now that is literally coming out of you as a mother to your children.
Yeah.
And now you're teaching them how to love. You're teaching them how to receive love. You're teaching them, and through your experiences, how to perceive what love looks like.
Yeah. Yeah. All
Right.
wrong.
Right. So, sis, let's move to the privilege.
Mm.
Motherhood is a calling, a purpose, a privilege. Talk a little bit about the privilege of motherhood.
It is such a, I mean, just when you just think about it, I mean, think about, let's just go back to Mary for a minute, and you think about her just being chosen and selected to carry the savior of the world.
Mhm.
What a privilege that was. Like like you can't even begin to imagine. And I think there are so many parents who may look at kids who are famous or like people who are doing well, and you think like, oh my gosh, these moms feel like so privileged. But I think the privilege of motherhood is recognizing within your children that ability to see the gift of who they are, and asking God to give you that open eyes, those eyes of your understanding being enlightened to see the treasure that you have in your own home. Because I think what happens is sometimes when we don't recognize the fact that God has given us such an amazing gift, that many times we are looking for ways to relive our own childhood through our kids,
Mhm.
but it's a privilege for us to have these gifts that God has given, to be able to invest into their ability to learn how they see the world. It's a privilege to be able to have them even call you mom. You know what I'm saying? For them to see you in that light, because I think there are kids who have moms that aren't operating um, in the title of mom. you
Definitely.
know, that they are not, because it's that whole purpose thing. When you don't understand the purpose of something, you will abuse it. It's inevitable that that will happen.
Mhm.
And so I think it's just a beautiful blessing that our children get to call us that, and that we get to be the investor into the next, world changer that's coming up in this earth. And so I find that the Proverbs 31 woman. So, I'm going to go here with her, because I think that so many of us, listen to all of the attributes of this woman, and we think that, oh my gosh, how in the world am I
Right.
going to do or be all of that, right?
Mhm.
Um, but the beautiful part about God and why he did what he did in putting all of these different attributes inside of this one woman who really is the prototype for all women.
Mhm.
And every gifting and ability that this woman has, God has invested in you.
Mm.
We have so much on the inside of us that we don't tap into a lot of it. we may feel inadequate in many ways and ill-equipped to raise even the gifts that God has given. But to be able to be called a daughter of Zion, that
Mm,
you are a child, you are a daughter of the Most High God, and whatever belongs to Him belongs to you. You are of the royal line of the kingdom of God.
mm,
And I don't say that in a cliche Christian religious type of way. But when you think about what you have access wise, you have access to God for Him to give you the wisdom. If you don't feel like you have what you need for your children, James tells us if any man lacks wisdom or any woman lacks wisdom, ask of God.
mm,
So you have a right in the kingdom of God to ask for those things so that you can be to the child that God has blessed you with everything that they need you to be.
mhm.
And so this Proverbs 31 woman, I love what verse 25 says, and I'm in the message, so I'm going to have to change over to another version because it's absolutely going to give me the wrong thing. You know how the Message Bible
Yeah.
is. It's going to tell you like 15 different things you don't want to read. But this is what I'd love to just share about us. The privilege that we have as being a woman of God. It talks about us being clothed. This is Proverbs 31, verse 25. And this is sort of like our she shop scripture.
Mhm.
She is clothed with strength and dignity, and she laughs without fear of the future. And so when I think about being a mom, I think about being armed and equipped by God to do what He has called me to do.
Mm,
And we don't have to shrink back in fear, but we can rest in knowing that God has given us everything we need to see our children to the end, to see our children to victory, to see our children walking in who God has called them to be. So, ladies, be encouraged, sister. Every day is not going to look amazing and glorious and triumphant, but know that who God has called, He has equipped. He's not going to send anybody out into battle without first counting the cost.
yes.
And so if you're a mom, He's counted the cost.
I love that so much. I do. I love the encouragement of that, and just
Mhm.
again, another standard, right? So if we
Right.
can this is the definition, right? This is the standard that we can model after,
Hmm.
which I love. And if there wasn't any standard, everything would be willy-nilly, right?
Right.
But
Right.
the fact that we do have that is so encouraging.
Hmm.
And so, yes, a calling, a purpose, and a privilege. Not only are we positioned in our child's life, but
Hmm.
we are also there's such an influence that we have
Hmm.
on who they become. You
Yes.
only knew the influence that you have on your children to really help them to become everything that God created and purposed for them. Because, like you said, sis, before He knew us, before before we were in the womb, He knew us. Like there was a
That's right.
purpose for us. There was a purpose
Yes.
that He
Yes.
had for us
Yes.
that we
Hmm.
spend our lives trying to not only align with, but to really walk in, right?
Yes.
But
Yes.
before we were even in our mother's womb, He knew us. I love that. That
Yes.
scripture, I love it so much because it reminds me that
Hmm.
everything that happens in our lives, it has to pass by God first, right? We have to like pass by, when we always say, oh, the enemy, the enemy, the enemy, right?
Hmm.
But one thing He says is everything works together for our good for those called
That's right.
according to our purpose, to His purpose, right? So
Right.
if we know that we're going through a rough time in life,
Hmm.
that we know that whatever it is that we're going through, that the enemy is not going to be the victor. The enemy isn't going to win, because I think it was in Job, sis, you can help me with this, where the devil had to ask God if he
For
could,
permission
for permission to
about Job.
do right, to do things to Job.
Hmm.
And he said, "Yep, you can do everything but kill him," right?
That's right.
And
Hmm.
so he did everything but kill him, literally.
Hmm.
And it was things that you're just like, "Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine what that would
Hmm.
be like to lose everything, everyone, all of it, and still not curse God." Right?
Hmm.
But
Wow.
then he restored it.
10 times.
And so I think about that story a lot when, times are really tough, or when marriage is hard, or
Mm.
you're just like, finances are low, right? Or tight. And you're just like, okay, I know I'm going through this for a purpose. And I know that God, the enemy had to ask the permission
Mhm.
for this to
Mhm.
happen. And so there's got to be purpose in it. Otherwise, it wouldn't have happened. Right. And I just feel like, even through this, even though there's difficult times, how can this make me better? How can this make me align more to who God's created me to be and align me to become? And even those tough things and those hard, difficult areas in our lives, I love when
Mhm.
God uses them for his glory. When we can share something with someone and they're encouraged, or they start crying, or they're just like, "Oh my gosh, I'm not alone." When
Mhm.
you think that this was like the worst thing that could happen to you, you happen to share it with someone and they're encouraged by it. That's how you know that even bad things God brings together for our good.
Absolutely. Absolutely, sis. That is so good. I mean, the word of God tells us no weapon
Mm,
formed against us is going to prosper. He
yeah,
didn't say it wasn't going to form. He said, but it's not going to prosper.
that's good.
And so we have to remember that in the middle of it, that whatever we're going through, God's going to repack it, as you say, reverse engineer it. He's going to repurpose that thing, and
Yeah.
he's going to cause it to work out for our good and for his glory. Because in the end, he's got to get all of the glory. He truly does.
Mm,
And so, in our quest really to parent and to parent well, when we talk about being an influence to our children, I think the greatest influence that we can be to our kids is to get on our knees and to pray for them, to pray in the spirit for them, and begin to pray the word for them. Because I think, it's one thing to have our desire for what, like I have a desire that I'd like to see for my kids, right? But his desire far
mm,
exceeds
mhm.
anything that we could think or imagine. Like his desire for them, his plans for them. He says, look, I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord. Plans to prosper you, not to harm you, to give you hope, a future, and an expected end. And so, for us, our plans are great, but his plans are far beyond. And
Yes.
so when we can give our children back to God, Abraham was such a beautiful example of this.
Mm,
First of all, Sarah trusted him enough to take her son to this journey
right,
on the mountain,
right.
and for him to say, I'm going to give my son back to God because I know full well that we both coming down off of this mountain. So if I have to kill my son today, God's going to raise him up. And I think that is the abandonment that we have to have in the Father, to know that when we give our children over to the Lord, he's not going to harm them.
Mm,
He's not going, they're not going to die on his watch and in his care.
right.
So we have to learn to give our children back to the Lord so that the Lord can do in their lives his will and his good pleasure.
So
Yeah.
good. Yes, that's so good. I love being a mom. I really do.
Mhm.
I feel like I've always really loved it, and I just think it's such a privilege. And I'm blessed by my children. And I even inherited a son when I got married, and he's
Mm.
amazing and wonderful. And, it's just, and I think it's because I really did go into this knowing that it was going to be great. Like I knew when my kids were little, because they're even so close, that I would never have problems with them as teenagers. Like people like, oh, I hate the teenage years. I hate it. It's the worst. Like I can't wait for them to leave. Like I just made the decision that I'm going to be the kind of mom that make sure that I don't have all these issues with my children. So one of the things that I want to leave you guys with is that a very thing that I remember from my dad, that he said, people do what you inspect, not what you expect.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of moms expect their children to do things, but they don't inspect. And so one of the things that I did is I did both. So not only did I expect it, but I inspected it as well. So there's a level of accountability. There's a level like I'm always in their business. I'm always looking what you're doing. Like I'm not just expecting and letting them go, because I think one of the things that I also, as your children age, I know a lot of parents kind of become hands off because they think that they're older, they don't need them as much. But that's the opposite needs to happen. When they
Mhm.
get older, that's when you need to become more involved. You need to be looking under the bed and looking in the drawers and looking at these other things, right? And
Mhm.
and so to be able to do that and see that your children trust you and you can trust them is a beautiful place to be. And one of the things I told
Mhm.
them when they were little, I said, if as long as you never lie to me, we're going to be good. We're going to be good.
Mhm.
And so I was like, so when they were little, I was like, no, I won't spank you if you lie, if you tell me the truth. And so when they would tell me the truth, even if it was difficult, they may get a punishment, but they wouldn't get a spanking. Right. And so
Mhm.
I think that that really was it just something that stuck with them. So having teenagers that tell me the truth all the time, whether it's hard or bad, I mean, whether it's difficult or a challenge or they're scared or whatever, is probably one of my greatest blessings that
Mhm.
are really from the harvest of the seeds that I've sowed,
Mhm.
is that to have a 16, 17, 18-year-old who can talk to me about anything and everything and tell me the truth, and I can ask them and then they'll tell me the truth, whether it's hard or not, because that's what we instilled when they were little, very, very little. We don't
Yeah.
like liars, right?
Right. Right. Exactly.
Exactly. And so, sis,
Exactly.
any last final words that you want to share before we close out?
I just want to encourage some of the moms who may not have some of these same testimonies, who may have had difficult, parenting moments with their kids, and or you have just like, a bad relationship with your child. I just want you to know it's never too late for things to turn around. Make sure that you surround yourself with, sisters and with friends who can walk on this journey with you. We don't know it all. We don't come with a manual. You don't become a mom and then there's a book that falls out of heaven that, other than the Bible, honey. Let me tell you, that is a manual. And there's a lot of information in there on motherhood. You know what I'm saying? We don't have that practical guide to being a mom. A lot of times we learn from the mothers before us and what people tell us and those sort of things. Um, but just know you're not alone in this race. You're not alone in this journey. And there are other women who can link arms with you and walk out these things with you. And many of you feel like you're alone. You feel like, you're a failure and you feel like you haven't done anything right. I want to encourage you, sis, you are a gift from God to your children. And I want to encourage you to remember that the love of God that's been shed abroad in your heart is for them, for you first, loving you first and loving them. Be encouraged that things can turn around and get better if it doesn't look like that right now. If you need support, come and join Love and Sisterhood. Subscribe to this channel.
Mhm.
Contact us on our website and allow us to be an encouragement to you and walk this journey with you because, sis, everybody needs a hood, and we're here for you.
Absolutely. Thank you for saying that, sis. I agree. There's so many ups and downs to motherhood, and
Mhm.
um, we can I get it when we think, okay, oh, I'm a failure. I did this. I wasn't able to breastfeed. I wasn't able, all of these things that pressures that we put on ourselves from society. And And I thank you so much for bringing that up, because everyone does not have that a testimony of having great kids from, you know what I
Right.
mean, beginning to
Yeah.
end. That's very real, but absolutely, it's never too late. It's never
Mhm.
too late to start over and, just start again.
Fresh. Yeah.
Fresh again
Start
today.
fresh.
Today. Who cares if their child is 40, if they're 50, if they're
Right.
4, right, or 14. It doesn't matter, because I think the effort and the
Mhm.
expression of love that you're wanting to give towards your child is the really the crux of what brings about the change, right?
Yeah.
And so
Absolutely.
thank you for saying that. And so, sister, we are so excited again that you are here. Thank you for spending this time with us. We have a really awesome program called Building Better Love Habits that we are going to launch um, this fairly soon. So if you are interested in learning more, we want to make sure that you join our tribe at bit.ly/join Love and Sisterhood. So you can get all the information about when we're
Mhm.
going to launch that program. It's a 30-day program that anybody can do. And it's really going to help take you just step by step by step in learning to build better love habits with yourself and with those that you love. And
Mhm.
so join us. Also, be sure, like Nicole said, make sure you subscribe and turn on those notifications so you know when we're going live. We are live on Thursdays, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And of course, there will always be replays. And then also check out the She Shop. This is
Yeah.
where we have our fabulous shirts. We've got a shirt in there for moms and just some really cool things, because not only do we love shirts, and they're called she shirts, right? Not
Mhm.
only do we love she shirts, but being able to express ourselves, express our beliefs, express love, express real talk on our clothes, I think is super fun.
Mhm.
And lastly, if you're wanting to continue the conversation, please head over to our Facebook page, Love and
Mhm.
Sisterhood, LUV and Sisterhood, for further discussion about motherhood, a calling, a purpose, and a privilege. And always, we are on Instagram, same thing, Love and Sisterhood, LUV and Sisterhood. And so we again thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate you joining us each and every week. Please share any show topics that you're interested in, because again, Sisterhood in 60 is about real women having real conversation about real topics and real issues that we never really talk about.
That's right.
So, yes, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see
Thank
you
you, ladies.
next week.
Bye, sisters.